Come on, dog, let's do it. Hello, world. Patricia O'Connor here, and Frida Reba Dorsey. I am here. I'm standing just out of frame. What you're looking at is my Ponderosa pine, while I am also moving furniture. What you're looking at is my Ponderosa pine. I've got some explaining to do. Oh my God, this tree, y'all. This is one of my projects that I am just absolutely enthralled with. I took on this tree a couple of years ago. I bought it over the internet. I got it from a collector that I know and trust out of Deadwood, South Dakota. And he collects trees. He is also a forester, and those are properly collected trees and stuff. And this tree was collected off the side of a mountain in 2022. I got the tree in 23, almost 24, I think. So from that point, I felt like the meter was running, because Ponderosa pines are not known for their coastal tolerance. What they're known for is to hang out here and think it's all lovely for about 5 years, and then they run out of energy and die. So I've also haven't been told by other people that you can finesse those along. I believe those people, but I also believe that the 5 years that the meter is running on a Ponderosa pine that's growing on the coast. I think people have found a way to hedge that, but at the end of the day, I think that's going to be at the very least strike one of strike three that would kill a tree. So if you can always put off that strike two and that strike three, then maybe you can just go along for a few years and go against that rule that takes out trees. And it has to do with hormonal allocation and them not properly shutting down in the winter. For that reason, I did a couple of things. You can reset the clock on that 4 or 5 years you have to keep this guy happy in the wrong environment by overwintering it someplace colder and giving it that time out. I did that the first year, so I still should have 2 or 3 years to go. Then I had the tree grafted with some Japanese black pine. I think that probably shows up here. Now, in the meantime, when I got this tree, all of the branches and everything were way up high, up here. And it was done that way from the collector. Not that was his idea of styling necessarily, but that was the way for him to show off the tree to a prospective buyer, while at the same time making all of those branches up here meant that they were all energy positive as far as their hormonal allocation and getting maximum sun and all that. Also couldn't have been shipped that way. He had to bend everything back down to put it in the container and send it to me. Once I got it, I never was happy with all of the branches up here anyway. I looked at it for 2 weeks in the picture before it showed up, dreaming of the moment when I was going to reposition all those branches in a position that I thought was better aesthetically pleasing. At the same time, not quite knowing what I was going to do with the trees. When you collect a Yamadori tree, you end up with an awful lot of really, really long branches. And so what you see right now is the side of the tree that you haven't seen in quite some time. It's the side that faces out there when the tree is in its spot. As you can see, all of the foliage is not all facing one way, but it should be, because it's all over here. And the tree is going to be facing one way. So if it's got foliage that's pointing that way, that stuff's not going to see the sun. So what I did was I decided that part of it was too straight. I got a bonsai jack, and we made a show where we did some compression, we did some bending, we did some wiring, and I repositioned all the branches that were up here down to here, and I started bringing along this tree. And at the same time, I was still looking ahead and going, I'm worried about that 5-year meter thing. So I took the tree up north to Auburn, California, where it overwintered there in Peter T's garden. While it was there, we discussed my other options, and he grafts trees, and that was a long way from here. So I then decided to have the tree grafted by him, and he put a half a dozen Japanese black pine grafts on this tree. That would do two things. That would allow me to get a shorter needle length on this without having to go to the typical methods that you go to try to get some shorter needle length on a Ponderosa. I would be able to get a shorter needle length with a Japanese black pine, and I could better suit that to whatever size tree this is in the finished set. That would also allow me to bring foliage closer in to the trunk, that being the living parts, and we could start replacing all of these parts that are farther out for a tree that's tighter in. So 6 grafts were placed around this area. One survived, and that's this one. So what do we do then? Oh, and in the process of grafting, the grafter cut loose everything that I had done the summer before. So all the wiring, any wiring that was anywhere near where he was going to put a graft, that got cut. I also had some guy wires on the tree that were holding the tree in place from where I had put a bonsai jack to it and repositioned stuff that I thought was too straight at the time. We got a little bit of movement out of it. When he cut those guy wires loose, they mostly stayed. So I got quite a bit of the movement that I had originally wanted to get out of that, but not all. So at that point, the wiring that I had done had been cut loose. The guy wires that I had done had been cut loose, and that was all so that we could better facilitate the scions or the grafts. And the grafts were going to help this tree to maintain a rich and healthy, full life here on the coast with Japanese black pine. But as I said, only one graft took. The other reason why you might want to do something with the wire on all of these branches is because right now they would have all before, not right now, but before, they would have been in a position where they were pointed up to the sun, getting the proper amount of sun and being in an energy positive state. So when all of those wires were removed, now things are hanging down in positions that they are not used to hanging down in. They are getting sun in positions that they weren't getting used to sun in. And I'm seeing a lot more burn. This would not have been a major deal about all of that burn because we were going to be switching the game from the foliage it had to the foliage that it's getting. The foliage that it's getting is now a solo soldier that can't take on the whole tree, and I'm still having all of this foliage going on 2 years now, getting all burned up, except I'm flashing ahead. Last winter would have been the second winter since we had done this. It would have been end of winter, beginning of spring, would have been 1 year since that scion was placed, and we knew we had one. I made arrangements to have the tree picked up in my driveway with someone who I thought was very competent, and then I made arrangements with Peter T to have more grafts put on the tree. And then when it came time to do that, I think I'd even made a show, and I got the tree loaded up. I put it in my little red wagon. We bit downstairs, and we tried to call our shipper to make sure they were going to be here on point. We just got an answering machine, so we sat there and waited for hours for a no-show. That never happened. I never got an explanation. I never found out why the person that I paid to show, I didn't pay them to show up because they didn't show up, but they also didn't show up. So that's pretty embarrassing, and it's pretty humiliating, and that was somebody that I'd really trusted. And then I had to go back to Peter T and say, hey, I know you were looking forward to me showing up at 1 o'clock, but guess who's not going to be there today? And that was a no-show on the day of, which is, I don't know what else I could have done. And I was appropriately humiliated to have to make that phone call. So what do? We fall back we take our little red wagon, we put our tree back in its place, and we begin to step back and watch for signs that things aren't going well, while we then look at the bark that is encroaching all of these areas where we could have had adequate grafts last year. I have reached out to Peter T about 2 months ago and said, I've made other arrangements to have this tree grafted. It has to be grafted again. If it's going to be grafted, it has to be grafted again by Peter T for the reasons of this Japanese black pine is his specimen that he takes grafts from. if I take grafts from any of my Japanese black pines, they will not be exactly the same genetics. They will not have been from the same tree. Whenever it comes time for something to happen seasonally, they need to be of the same. They need to be from the same stock, or they will act differently throughout the tree's life, and that'll be obvious when it comes time to yellow or orange or turn green or whatever, or candle or decandle. They will always do things on a different if they are not from the same stock. So we're locked in to that grower. We're locked into that stock. I've made another arrangement so that come February we can do this again. I reached out to Peter T. I'm not surprised that I haven't heard back from him. So yeah, this past October, in keeping with what we have had the last couple of years, we had 90-degree temperatures, and as I always say, those those high temperatures that come in October come in a time when the tree would normally be working its way towards winter hardiness, and instead it gets socked with a really high temperature. So for that reason, and I've decided to rewire. We're going to rewire our branches on this Ponderosa, not in a beautiful styling sense, but in the sense of the word that we want to make sure that all of our branches, what you see of the tree is it's also, you're seeing a burned tree at this angle. A couple of days ago, I walked up to the tree and it looked to me to be healthy and green and had good color, and I was really happy with the color for the most part of this tree this year. Got a little too much wire. Then I grabbed the tree and brought it down to where I'm standing now to get it out of the rain. And when I saw the face of the tree, when I walked around, see, it's not in my yard, I can't walk around it. I was looking at the back of it as it stood on my balcony. And when I brought the tree down, I could well and truly see the side that faces the sun, and it was burned and yellow. It was burned and it was yellow all over. And that's because for going on 2 years now, all of these buds are not at the proper angle to properly they're not at the right angle. They're not facing the sun, and they're not at the right angle to photosynthesize. They are at the right angle to burn. I need to hook this better than what I just did. And that's what I'm seeing here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back and straighten this out just from the very start. We're going to fix what I should have fixed a couple of years ago. Now, as far as fixing this a couple of years ago we didn't know that we weren't going to have but one of these scions. So a couple of years ago I would have said, okay, this is going to be not necessarily the best for these tips, but this is them changing their hormonal allocation from what we had to what's happening next. Bring that up. Okay. Bring that up more. Boom. There. That's what I wanted to do with that. Now this is properly facing the sun. Also, I did a pretty good poke with my finger there. Grab the end of the wire that I had just cut and poke the end of my finger. We're not going to notice who we're going to do next. And I'm not going to do all of these. I don't think I have to do all of these. Also, since this is just to aid the isotropic level of these branches, I don't know that I'm going to do every one of these in copper. I'm not even concerned that all this stuff is going to match or not. That's not. What is a consideration is that stuff stops burning and stuff gets tipped up into the light where it will have a chance to photosynthesize and not just burn. So that's what I'm doing here. All right. What am I going to do here? All right. Also, I'm trying to avoid any wire marks that we were in last time. We can start them anew. So what I think will happen is I will get a little closer to game day, which is to say the time of year when these would actually be grafted, and then I'll try again to reach out to Peter T. If I'm not able, for whatever reason, if I'm not able to get this tree to that garden again, and it was a logistical nightmare. It wasn't. It took some doing for me to line that up, and the person who let me down should not have done that. But you know, life happens. I can't unmake what is already gone down. But the thing is, the one scion that's growing is growing well. I won't always be a person who doesn't feel comfortable grafting. I have made it my goal to graft a Ponderosa pine, not this one, to graft a Ponderosa pine this year. That will happen. I will do that this year. I will graft a Ponderosa pine. This scion at some point will give me the material that I need if I need to graft this tree. If I can't get back in touch with Peter, then we're going to try to maintain an energy positive state and continue to let the tree flourish with this one Japanese black pine, and it will continue to grow. It grows at a faster rate than the Ponderosa. So long as the tree doesn't decide to kill this or cast this off, it should at some point be usable material for me to do this. So I'm not totally freaked out about that. I'm trying to decide which one of these gets the next. It's going to be you. It is. It's going to be you. When dealing with copper wire, yes, you want to keep moving your hand down to that next, from the last wrap to the next one, right? We want to keep doing that all the way down. But at the same time, the wire is heavier, so it will help you to bend this. It will help you to bend this wire, this heavier to bend wire, if you grab the wire farther out and use the wire that you're using as a lever. This metal tag, that is the stock, the rooting, the stock that the grafter, Peter T, used. This is the stock. This is his note of what stock was used on that tree, so that if when it gets grafted again, we'll know which tree was the donor. He'll know which tree was the donor. Nobody else would know by that what genetics that is, because that is his tree. It could also be a cultivar variety that several growers have passed around. There might be somebody out there that goes, "Hey, Pat, yeah, I see what's going on there. I see you going back and forth. I have that stock." You know, that might not be. You know, how would that be? You can't really. You don't see people take cuttings off of trees much, but you see people add cuttings to trees. And in a couple of years, I would be able to tell somebody, "Hey, I've got an example of that stock." If you need a scion or two, yeah. And this is what we're doing. We're just bringing these guys up in the light, whereas for too long now they have not been. If we do that enough, and we can take also. I don't have enough copper wire to be wasting that much right now. So yeah, what this will help the tree to do is to stay in a more energy positive state. It will also help to stop burning so much when we get hot, scorching days. Also, it's been kind of pointed out amongst the growers that are sunset are more likely to burn than they used to, and will burn our trees more than they used to. So shade cloth for those who have that opportunity is not a bad idea, probably a great idea. Where am I? It's there, grab here. This wire's already trying to harden up on me as I bend it. Should do that. Don't wire down your needles. Never wire down your needles. If you don't see a way around it, pull the dang needle. Okay. Isotropic. Now, I don't know if I did that on camera or not. This branch, I just wired it. I haven't moved it yet. That's where it was. This is the end of the branch. This end has been going down and is trying to curve its way up. It would take it a couple of years to do that. What we're going to do now is tip that guy up. Not a whole lot, just to there. If I do this and then do this, then I just did two things. One, I just did what Ryan Neal calls dropping the kids off at school. I hope this is on camera. This might not even be on camera. There's a bud over here, and when I brought this tip around, I exposed this bud to the light. That's dropping the kids off at school. Is what that. When you hear a person wire a tree and then they talk about that last step is like dropping the kids off of school. What they have just done is made sure that the buds on the branch leading up to that tip got its place in the sun and is the future, right? So it's not going to become a weak member of that, but it's going to be, isotropically the next thing ready to take off and help make a pad there. So that's what we mean when we say dropping the kids off at school. Now, this is a debatably too small piece of wire, but I already said I didn't have enough wire to go screwing around. And so I saw this piece and saw that this was a short hop. and thought, yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. And that tip of a piece of copper wire is especially hard to, that's okay. Pat's a tough girl. You notice I didn't just go, I don't know, I hope you did. I don't know what my angle is. I hope you noticed that I didn't just go jacking that straight up. I didn't. I tipped it up because that's kind of what Ponderosas do. As I've heard it described, black pines are more like this, rigid. White pines are more like this, and pondos would be, you know, kind of more subtle in their tip up, and it would take them longer to get there. All of this, I'd like to see all of this come up, and then I've got branches back here that are just absolutely facing the wrong way. How is that going to work? You know, how is that going to work? That's going to work if you can see these. That would work only because of my overhead lights. Everything is facing this way, it's getting actual sun. The stuff that's facing that way, it's got its back to the sun, but with my overhead light, it's not completely in the dark. And looking at that stuff, it looks healthy, right? Our problem wasn't necessarily the limbs that are, our problem wasn't necessarily any of the branches that are not in direct sun. The problem was those that were in direct sun and not pointed up at the light were getting burned. So looking at these and knowing that I was going to do this, I looked at the branches that are pointed the opposite way as everything else, and I'm thinking, well, we'll need to bring those around. But I'm looking at them and they're healthy. They're healthy and they're not burned. They're not burned because they're not facing the wrong way in the sun. They're not facing the sun at all. And my overhead lights are doing these guys just fine. I don't see any burn or any problems. They're doing better than the rest of the tree. So I think I'm going to let this, and if you can see it, this go, because that's the greenest parts of the tree. It doesn't have any of the burn that this does. Doesn't have any of the yellow that this does, but it does have. But it is showing that it's got good enough exposure to the light that it's good and green. So, yeah. All right, let's do this. This is going to be a long walk here. Let's see how much. Not doing anything. Okay, so this is a really weak branch right here, and it's hanging down. We've had some die off already, got some gens going here, but this branch is still got plenty of stuff on it that's looking to do things. So, but here's what I started to cut a big piece of copper for that, and I think I just decided instead to take a piece of aluminum and just guy wire that up. I would like to say, for the record, this is not house beautiful wiring. This is mechanical. We want to make sure that the tips of this tree stop burning on really hot super days and are more pointed in their place in the sun, how they need to be. And I've been looking at this for 2 years while waiting on these grafts, and I've known that this was an issue. I could come here and do, no, that would be harder. there. That was my final. It's my final idea. Careful of your gin. Be careful of your scion, Patricia, and don't lie down. Yeah, the scion on this little Japanese black pine scion, I gotta say, I think it's looking pretty good. Come underneath. Okay, just a little pickup. I picked this up. I didn't pick that up. I didn't pick that up. Could probably do that with a piece of aluminum. Okay, I can. You can do that with a piece of aluminum all day long. There are little lessons in here that I could be passing along about where to start on which side of a branch to avoid, but this isn't that type of, this really isn't that type of style work as much as this is just, we're just tipping everybody back up into the sunshine. Thank you all. Thank you all for your support. Tip up. We'll tip up. What we hear is a family reunion at the pool, and they are doing what you should be doing at a family reunion, and that is they are enjoying their loved ones. Almost. Ooh, it's almost. Let's see, I'm going to go the other way with this. Hook that right underneath. It is the final few days before we start going in to the holidays here in the States. And I look forward to the time off. I don't really do anything during the holidays. I was an only child growing up, and nobody got more than me. I'll just say it that way. I definitely mastered the art of getting. It's important to give. It is. It's very important to give. And I also personally love that part too. The part of doing something nice is always nicer than you know. You know, you think, oh well, here's an opportunity, and you just do it. You don't think about it, and then when it comes, and then when that moment comes to fruition, it's even nicer. So yeah, let's get some of these. If I can get any old needles, or any of you guys old needles, any of you guys want to give up? Y'all are okay here? Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Now, do we have enough aluminum wire on here to give this a little tip up, tip over, tip up? Yeah. Now see, All of this stuff can now photosynthesize, and before it was hanging down, which causes it all to burn. And then that's just weakening the tree, weakening and killing that branch. All right. Okay, fine. Here's what Pat's gonna do. I'm going to tip up this guy. I'm going to tip up this guy, and then we're done. That's what I want. I want that. Don't wire that needle in. A lot of times when I sound like I'm telling people what I'm, like I'm teaching, I'm not. I'm telling myself not to continually do the same. I'm not immune. I'm not immune to mistakes. I'm not immune to making the same dumb mistakes over and over again. But I am definitely trying to do better. And as I was once told many years ago on a motion picture set where I used to work, experience is catching your mistake the moment you repeat it. I know, right? Experience catching your mistake the moment you repeat it. All right, you're a little bit more sunward now. This tip, the end, that was our future. That was getting burned there. Now, not so much. Put a guy wire here so that can get light. These back branches that seemingly wouldn't be getting any light at all and should be dead by now, they are being lit by my overhead light, and that is more than enough for them because they look lush and full and green. And the stuff that's facing forward, facing the actual sun, was all at a bad angle, so it proceeded to burn and green. The good news is the tree looks a lot better just as soon as I face it away from us a little bit and we're not looking at all those burnt tips, which is great in barbecue, bad for trees. But at the same time, they were getting burnt because they were all at an angle that was not beneficial to them. It was more conducive to burn than photosynthesis. And take out your, what we always say about cutting needles, but a needle that's half dead and half green is it's not helping anybody. So yeah, I think Ryan, when he's talking about how to reduce needle length on Ponderosa pines, he's big to mention that we leave the needles on it. We don't just start, doing a lot of the same things. We don't needle prune or candle cut the way we do. But you will see him remove ugly bottom needles that don't conform to the pad, like 3 or 4, right? That's not the same as a needle reduction. It's just like his idea of a cleanup, and it's a fine line on Ponderosas, I gather, from a little cleanup to you're cutting too much off there. All right. I don't know how much of this work was dead feasible. This is a big tree. It's not easy to work on. I could have rearranged all the furniture in the house and set this in the living room and set the camera off from about 5 or 6 feet and tried to do it that way. These are always tricky for me. What was more important is that I was able to sit right here and do the work. I hope I did most of it on camera, and I hope mostly what I did made sense. That was our wound. If you saw me doing that going in, that looked like that might have been messy for a minute, but it was okay. It was just the flesh wound. Like and subscribe if you guys have not already. I basically did what I wanted to do here. Everybody is pointed skyward. This is the way that they can best photosynthesize, and the way that that will help them to not burn the way that they continue to burn. Our next drop is going to be our next Thursday drop, which is Thanksgiving. I don't do Thanksgiving plans. I hang out with Frida. I typically bring home a pie, and I eat most of it, and that's pretty much the totality of Thanksgiving. So what the heck? If you need a minute to get away from the family, come on by. I will probably be in the works of shooting a video, or we'll be downloading or uploading a video. So yeah, our next drop will be on Thanksgiving, and then after that, we'll just act like it wasn't even the holidays. Next weekend. This is this weekend. We'll be doing this again next weekend, and I appreciate you. Frida appreciates you, and this was us putting a little wire to our branches that we had dewired so that we could graft, and then I've been looking for 2 years at branches that were burning because they were not wired, and so I decided to wire them back because we've still got a minute. Thank you all so much for watching. Actually, I do think that looks, personally, I think that looks a lot better, because I know, they look better when they're pointed up at the light rather than hanging down burning and not doing anything. I appreciate you. Frida appreciates you. And thank you all so very much for watching. Oh, there's a dog treat. Yeah, no, you did great.